So let's talk about a split. Now before we begin, let me preface this with saying that this is not the first time something like this has come up in NASCAR before. Of course, there was the infamous debacle surrounding the first ever Talladega race, where the drivers even temporarily unionized, before quickly dissolving after the issue was adjourned. The other notable occurrence came in the late 90s over Texas Motor Speedway. Burton Smith was trying to do power plays to get NASCAR to put another race there. Now that occurrence has some similarities to what we see in this situation. SMI would release rumors into the sphere of the NASCAR media, and let it simmer as NASCAR began damage control. However, legendary Bill France Jr. did an immaculate job of holding the ship together, and played diplomacy perfectly. That was now 25 years ago, and Big Bill has been gone for over 15. The sport has changed a lot, and at that point there was mass growth and optimism. France ran it well with a respected iron fist, and while it was practically a dictatorship, he knew how to keep the drivers and teams happy, making it so there was never concern large enough to cause what is happening now. TV ratings have been down now for nearly 20 consecutive years. We are approaching over 70% fall off from the highs of 2005 and early 2006. A TV deal hasn't been negotiated in nearly a decade. The last time was 2014, where it came to a number of $8.2 billion over the span of 10 seasons. After 2024, that ends. And compared to where the sport was in 2014, we have lost another approaching 50% of TV viewership. While this sounds bad, the sport still has plenty of leverage, surprisingly enough. Still, nearly every weekend, this sport wins either the most viewed event on TV for the weekend, or the second most viewed. That is huge for networks, as they try to fill time for when most normal sports are off. As we progress through the 21st century, big TV companies are slowly dying out. They are fading into the past, and one thing keeping them clinging on is their viewership in live sports. Hence, it is rumored that NASCAR will be getting around as much as they got last time per year. Now, while that sounds great, over the progression of inflation for the last decade, it still means NASCAR will receive a slightly smaller deal than before. On top of that, this is the first deal with the charter agreement existing. Now, the charters are something that could have a whole separate video on the issues those present. But to sum up what the teams want is to have the charters guaranteed regardless of what happens. Currently, under the functioning charter agreement, NASCAR can take away any charter they see fit from a team. The one example of this is when Starcom lost their charter, and NASCAR resold it to 23XI for the 2022 season. It ruined the Double Zero team, and set a scare into the sport. NASCAR, however, doesn't want to get rid of this power, reasoning that the teams, regardless of performance, can just corner the market and ramp up the prices. It'd make it borderline impossible for someone to buy into the sport. Currently, charters are being assessed at bare minimum at least $35 million. And apparently the teams want to be paid that worth from NASCAR in the TV deal annually, bare minimum. So theoretically, an $8.2 billion deal for 10 years makes it annually worth $820 million. That means if 36 teams all want to receive $35 million a year, that would mean NASCAR had to pay them annually $1.26 billion. That's an extremely high-end estimate. And if we were to go with the lower herd value of $10 million per charter, that drops it down to only $360 million. Still roughly 44% of the total TV deal revenue we have right now. Regardless of what the numbers are, the teams want a big step up in total revenue gain. Big enough that NASCAR is adamantly saying no to them, over and over again. This has led to the boycott of the most recent April 5th meeting that NASCAR was going to have with the teams. Whilst it seems the teams are asking a king's ransom, it appears NASCAR isn't putting a valid effort forward either. No members of the France family are reported to be going to these meetings, and the communication with NASCAR and teams is so poor that, according to Denny Hamlin, NASCAR never informed the team owners about the situation regarding Garage 56 that was established with Hendrick Motorsports.
We had a one of those team owner quarterly meetings. I think it was last year, and then the next day they announced the Garage 56 project, and it was like, did you not think it was important while all the owners were in the room yesterday to tell us about this huge news that you're partnering with one of the race teams to do this program? Like, that is just lack of transparency and lack of respect for the people that put on your show for you every week. That was just the absolute head scratcher that it made so many teams mad, so many manufacturers mad, that it was just bad. It was just bad.
Hendrick has arguably become the best team this year. And while you think the favoritism might be played there, It's been a hot button issue between Hendrick and NASCAR with rules penalties, and the apparent horrendous miscommunication there in terms of what can be modified on a car and what can't. Take what side you will in regards to that, but the miscommunication with Hendrick and then with the appeals committee as well has made the entire situation look even worse. And the forthcoming penalties from Richmond has completely divided the fan base on who is on the right and wrong side of the situation. It has drawn a line on which side you would be on the issue. Going back to Denny Hamlin in his podcast, he explained the process of the appeals, which has also been a hot topic, stirring even more buzz over how much behind the scenes politicking may go on there as well. Top that with appeals from colleague over the same penalty as Hendrick not getting reversed apparently, and then no communication on what was actually happening there. If you didn't understand anything that I just said there, it's because it's a complete mess, and everyone is upset. Fines are being handed out, points are being lost, money is becoming an issue, and as mentioned before, a line has been drawn. It's either the teams or NASCAR. That line has scary implications. The word split gets thrown around more and more as the year progresses, something that some people may be willingly trying to speak into reality, and respond to that with a simple rebuttal. You don't want a split. Nobody in the industry wants one. An easy example is going to look at how devastating it was to the kart and IRL through the late 90s and early 2000s. It all ended in extremely hurt feelings, massive losses of money, the depletion of prestige in every organized event they had, and the eventual loss of being the #1 motorsport in America. Now we are still way far off from that situation occurring. There is still plenty of avenues to finding a middle ground. But as time progresses, the situation continues to get more dire. In terms of how a split could work, I personally have no idea. People romanticize the ideas of SRX or the Cars Super Late Model Tour being the outlets for that, but I doubt those to be the case currently. The biggest hint I see to any separate series becoming a reality is with what was stated last fall, the thought of running exhibition races in the off-season. Earlier I mentioned how many providers crave live sports for that ratings boom, and they could easily also pay money to the teams and the racing groups to have them run a separate exhibition series. According to some of the reports from Adam Stern as well, these were pretty well along the way in the talks it seemed. So now the ultimate question, is there going to be a split? I don't know. I don't think there will be one, but nothing is impossible. Just a year ago, this wasn't even a thought in the fan base, and now people are gathering behind battle lines. Feelings are getting hurt more and more, and controversy is elevated above what occurs even on track. And what I can say about 2024 onwards for NASCAR is that we will see things fall that we never dreamed of falling. Everything we know may be challenged in the sport. We may truly be heading for the dark ages of NASCAR. A time where battles on track, the racing, the sportsmanship, it means nothing. Whilst the battle for money, attention, and of course power will reign supreme.